Time for another episode, another edition of Survive and Thrive with CH Insurance and our pal Joe Convertino Jr. and a special guest this week. Joe, hi, good morning. Why don't you introduce us here?
Yeah, good morning, Gomez and Lisa. Hope you're doing well. I think we have really a leader and a staple throughout Central New York school districts. With us is Dr. Donna DeSiato, Superintendent of the East Syracuse Minoa School Districts. Thanks for coming on today, Doctor.
Certainly.
So I know we talked a little bit earlier, but just kind of to start off the question, I mean, you guys been working very hard over the past 3-4 months. A lot of the larger schools that are thinking of using a hybrid system, I want to talk about what went through your thought process. ESM for the younger elementary kids are going to go 5 days a week. What thought process went behind that? Because you're one of the only districts where you're thinking 5 days a week.
Well, all districts actually have prepared and submitted a plan to the State Education Department that actually outlines all three models: the in-person, the distance learning, and then the hybrid model. And in our district, what we did was we came into this recognizing that these are major decisions for parents to be making, and we need to be able to give them as much of the information and then the decision-making choices so that they can really sort through what model might be their preference. So we have outlined that we will commit to distance learning for those who would prefer to stay in distance learning. Then we also said we will do everything we can to provide 5-day in-person learning to the extent possible and practicable. We did a preliminary survey of which might be the preference without making a commitment in mid-July. And the way that the percentages were falling, we could see that based on the number of percentages requesting distance learning, the likelihood that we could have the capacity for in-person learning, at least in our K-8 or pre-K-8 classrooms, would be very possible. Now, we won't know for sure until we get the final details in on August 14, but we're leaving that open-ended so that people really are able to tell us what they would really truly prefer. We have stated repeatedly that if we exceed our capacity of square footage and staffing, then we may have to activate the hybrid model. So we're only activating a hybrid model when we really don't have that capacity or the capability of staffing. That's why we've said also it's likely that that will happen at the high school because there are so many complexities in a high school schedule. It's not only the square footage for an 1,100 plus student population, but it's also the details of who's certified to teach what courses at what time of day and all of that has to go into our analysis. That doesn't mean that some students might not be coming 5 days a week, but we will be analyzing that as we get the parent preferences in.
Listening to Survive and Thrive here with the Gomez and Lisa and Joe Convertino Jr. and Dr. Donna DeSiato, the superintendent of the East Syracuse Minoa School District. Tell you what, we'll get to our break and continue on Zoom, and you'll be able to catch this entire video a little bit later on our Facebook pages.
All right.
And there we are.
Okay.
Now we're on Zoom. And I know, Donna, I know earlier in the spring, too, in every district obviously had to adapt on the fly, but it seemed like ESM seemed to do, at least from my eyes, just from what I know about it and watching, a lot more than a lot of the other school districts were doing. It just seemed that way to me. Is that the case, do you think?
Well, I want to think and I believe that every district was working hard at making an overnight, very dramatic change to going to all distance learning. At ESM, what we had been preparing for, our vision is to become an exemplary 21st century learning model whose graduates are prepared to excel in a complex, interconnected, changing world. So for the last 5 years prior to this pandemic, we believe in walking the talk. So we were implementing Google Education Classroom, many different apps such as Seesaw and Screencastify and other apps that allowed us to have our educators working with our students every day. Our students we have a one-to-one Google Chromebook. Every student has a Chromebook in our district when they're in school. So we were able to say, we can overnight allow the Chromebooks to go home. And if parents had their own devices, they were able to use those, but most wanted to use our devices. And our classroom educators, certainly on a spectrum, they were very prepared to be able to move in this direction. What we don't know that we need to do more and more of is to improve our virtual learning. So it's got more defined time schedules, but also to help our parents to understand a Google Education Classroom or Seesaw or whatever it may be as we move forward. But thanks for the comment or the compliment. We heard that from a lot of our parents. We were not into sending large packets of paper home or other kinds of things. We wanted our students to be engaged, so we did as much synchronous learning, and we'll improve that and increase that this fall.
Dr. DeSiato, are there concerns that teachers have sort of across the board? What are some of the things that they're most concerned about?
Well, certainly, I think in just the advent of the reopening, teachers are going to be also taking all of this very carefully in with regarding their own impact on their own life, their family, their health, and we respect and they need to do that. We want them, they have been involved in our reopening planning. I think when it comes to distance learning, teachers are highly concerned of making sure that students aren't off our radar screen. When you're in the building, we know where you are, each part of the day. When you're in this virtual world, we may not know that. So we've created also support systems because teachers are concerned that students both have, the tolerance for more screen time, but also that we keep them actively engaged. I think in the in-person model, our teachers will be certainly needing to know what all the protocols are that we're putting in place for safety. And we recognize that, everything that we're doing is in alignment with the CDC, with the New York State Department of Health, and certainly with the governor's guidance and the state education department criteria. But there's no roadmap for this. There's no blueprint that we can say, oh, this is how it looks when everyone does it as well as they can. We're building this system. And so I think that they have rightfully, they have the right to raise questions, and we're trying to answer those questions.
Donna, was there anything when the governor had his most recent press conference about the school reopening, was there anything that you or other superintendents were hoping to hear that you didn't yet?
I would hope that we will get to a point that, just as we recognize, our governor has done a great job of taking on a major effort and flattening the curve or coming down the mountain, whichever way we want to call it. Certainly our counties and our county executives and others have done that. I would hope that we would recognize that our school districts turned overnight into virtual learning. It didn't take state ed giving us a mandatory set of policies. It didn't take someone. We did that, and we did that because we have educators who stepped up and they really made it work. I hope that everyone will realize that educators want this to work, but they want it to work in a way so that at the end of the day, everyone's healthy and safe, and that they can go home to their loved ones, and that we don't make any mistakes, or we don't have a margin of error that results in someone's becoming ill or dying. So, I think that we're in this together, and I'm hoping that we'll get to the point where we do hear that educators are part of the solution. That's what we need to hear more of. I think that that's what they're attempting to do. I want to believe that. That's why we're here working endlessly on this. But it just doesn't help when we circle the wagon, so to speak, and start to shoot or throw criticisms at each other.
Sure.
Not in New York State. We're the Empire State.
Right. Donna, what about, obviously learning and classrooms, very important, but the importance of extracurricular activities, the band, football, student athletes. Obviously our viewers are big sports fans, but what's your take? Is there been any discussion on what happens with that if things do work when we come back? What type of extracurricular activities could be done at the school level?
Sure. Great question, Joe. We actually, our executive high school principal, our coordinator for youth development and leadership, and our director of athletics, PE and health have been meeting with a group of about 20 to 24 students, high school students and alumni who were part of this between March and June so that we could get their insights. Students want those activities to go on. We want those activities to go on. We recognize that there's somewhat of a moratorium on them until certain dates in the fall. What we've been sharing with our students is let's think about the kinds of things that we might create if we still have the inability to have football. What are the other things we could do? What are other things we can do if we're not able to activate marching band? Our students are very creative and resourceful. We need to involve them again in the solutions and to be thinking about what other ways can we do some of the things. You know, if you saw our graduation ceremony, our students, our staff created an ensemble to a beautiful musical piece from a very popular Broadway show, and it was played out there. But the touching part is that staff and students working together on creating a piece that then our greater community gets to see. Those are the kinds of things we need to invite the students and the community and the staff into solution thinking. And if we can do that, we're going to come up with some kinds of creative extracurriculars. I don't know what those look like yet, but I trust that we will have them because this is part of youth development. A student only gets to be a senior once, you know, hopefully. You only get to be a kindergartner, you know, so, you know, we got to make.
Gomez, I don't know about you, Gomez. Just kidding, just kidding.
A question for you, Doctor, as well. How often are you able to talk to the other superintendents? Because obviously every district is unique. Different parts of the state have different needs, rural districts versus city districts. Do you superintendents have like a monthly chat or a Zoom or a conference call to touch base and compare notes?
We actually do. In Onondaga County, Cortland, and Madison County superintendents have been meeting ever since March when this first broke out every week. We meet once a week. We have a time set aside early in the morning when all of us are meeting and we create that agenda. In between, even within the week, we've been meeting as Onondaga County superintendents, for example, with our county executive and their offices or with our medical directors, you know, on certain aspects of this. I happen to serve on the New York State Council of Superintendents Executive Committee. So I am part of one of the superintendents for the network of superintendents across the state. We've been also holding and hosting Zoom meetings for superintendents that are in leadership roles across the state, and various kinds of informational meetings as well. So those are really very, very valuable to all of us because no one is as smart as all of us, you know. So when we do have those resources that we can count on and thinking it through together from those perspectives. Because the other piece that I'll just put in here, I think that most people don't realize all of the complexities of all the state education laws and all the laws that are upon us that we must meet each and every day, no matter what model we may be implementing. And so that superintendents understand that language, and we're able to share in this together. So yes, we are.
Dr. DeSiato.
Go ahead, please.
I know a lot of families are considering homeschooling their children, you know, separate from the district, or are they doing it in cooperation with the district? I'm just curious about, you know, homeschooling and
Right.
how that all works.
Yeah, we got out there right away with anyone who requested, because we understood that a parent might request a homeschooling packet because they would not want their child to be in an environment in which they might have to be with other people, and they needed to do that to protect their own family circumstances. So we let our families know that we will offer distance learning. It will be synchronous. You will see the teacher on the screen like you're seeing me this morning. That teacher will be interactive with the students. There will be a time schedule so that parents could make that choice and have a certified teacher as part of that. If a family chooses to homeschool, they're able to do that. The creative piece that families are working on is families are also creating networks of what they're referring to as pods in their own neighborhood or their community. And so what they're doing is they're saying, look, here's 4 to 6 to 8 families. We interconnect with each other. Our children are in each other's homes. They're playing together. Could we set up where if we are in a distance learning model where our children are together in 1 or 2 of our homes with the appropriate supervision while the other parents are going to work? So that's a very creative way. That's not only happening in our state, it is happening in other states, but I think that's the way we want to be able to support parents networking on what some of those solutions might be, because we understand they have loved ones, perhaps elderly, or not so elderly, but grandparents that may be living in their homes. They cannot be sending their children to school and then coming back home and having any kind of exposure. We get that.
Hey, the other piece, Donna, is we always ask our guests, how, you run a big business. Let's just say you're a superintendent of employees and kids and all of that. 2 years from now, when everything's back to normal, okay, how have what we all accomplished, or even in a school, has made you better? I think of, will virtual learning still be there for the kid that has chicken pox at home and can't come in, but he can still see the teacher, a surgery, something, horrific. But what do you see the future as a result of what everything that happened in these past 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I think that we have yet to be able to tell all the stories about some of the things that really were amazing and remarkable. The morning that we went to virtual learning, the very first student to sign on at our high school is a student that has school phobia, who predominantly is either not in school due to a medical release or does not actually physically come to school. Wow. That spoke volumes to us. That was like, look at this. So it's not about whether a student wants to learn. I believe that the nature of curiosity and imagination and discovery and problem solving in children is what they're born with. And so it's our ability to connect with that in a way that allows that differentiation. Those 20 plus students that we've been meeting with, there are some of them that will come right out and say, Dr. D, I want to come to school. This is very important to me if we can make this happen, but I want to be part of working this out. And there are others that say, Dr. D, I want to be able to be in distance learning. That's where I feel most successful. So Dr. DeSiato says, you know what, we have to make that work for both of you. So I love it when our students know and they're confident it's okay to express that. And we've said, let's not make this about that one is right and the other is wrong. Both of these models can work. So you're absolutely right. We will learn more about the capabilities of both our students, our staff, and our systems that are developing because of the fact that we've had this challenge. 2 years from now, I think we'll look back at that and hopefully a lot more.
Wow, that's awesome about that kid that was like, I didn't even think of that.
Well,
yeah, it's been amazing how for some students, it opened up another whole world. I have a student leader who was very shy, who's taken the front end of this student group. And again, it's the building the confidence. I can do this. So when you open those doors, it's amazing how students that otherwise might not have seen that as possible, all of a sudden it opens a whole world of possibility.
Donna, for the viewers before we close, what's your career path? I mean, did you start as in education, obviously as a teacher, move up from here? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Actually, the first 2 years of my career were actually, I'm actually graduated from Syracuse City School District, went on to Onondaga Community College, and then on to the University of Miami, where I got my bachelor's degree. But my master's degree is at SUNY Cortland, my CAS is at SUNY Oswego, and my doctorate is at Syracuse University. So I have a lot of Central New York really invested in me for my education. I started out as a teacher for 2 years in Iowa for a very short stint, but came back immediately to New York. New York was clearly where I felt at home, and was a teacher, a staff developer, an assistant principal, and principal for 10 years in Syracuse City, and then a director of elementary education, and shared the responsibility also of the K-8 schools. Then I became assistant superintendent there for 5 years and oversaw all aspects of the instructional part of the framework of Syracuse City School District. And then 15 years ago, I had the opportunity and I was fortunate to become superintendent here in the Syracuse Minoa School District. This has been just a great fit. The community is very supportive. The staff is remarkable. And our administrative team is really a team that truly takes the lead and the investment that we need to make. So, you know, that's my my story. I believe in hometown kids doing well. I believe in the fact that we can do it for every kid. I grew up in a family where, you know, my dad left high school to fight in World War II. And my mom graduated from high school, but
Yeah.
I was the first in my family to go to college. So I
Wow.
understand when you're the first. I understand what it means and what a difference it can make in your life. That's why, to me, education is a change maker in people's lives. And it's true of my brother and my sister. They're both attorneys. So here we are, you know, and our parents worked hard each and every day to let us have the education that we each have. And it's made a difference in our lives. And that's what I've committed myself to, is to making a difference in the lives of our students and our children and our families, feeling that they too can have that difference by engaging their children in a meaningful, high quality education.
No, and it's very
Great.
visible. You wear it on your sleeve. We see it through the media, and the passion and leadership that you have, I think, is catching everybody's eye. So we thank you, Gomez, Lisa.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, 48. You probably recognize that I'm more than old enough to retire.
Ah,
So I am in that category.
Yeah. Thanks for spending some time with us, Dr. DeSiato.
Thanks, and please thank you for educating our community on such a really important topic, and thanks for all you're doing to keep them informed. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
We'll stay in touch, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to Joe and well and CH Insurance and Survive and Thrive. We'll be back next time.
Thanks. Stay healthy.